It's a little bit tough to do such a radical switch that we now have to do topic-wise, but I think André Christ probably also has a few stories on the topic of stress. We won't be able to discuss those on stage here today, but I promise you it's going to be an interesting story. A lot of you will know LeanIX, big exit that it did a few years ago, was probably one of the biggest success stories that the Rhineland in particular has seen. But while many of you have heard the story, we now want to take it forward a little bit because André, as opposed to many other founders, has actually remained an active and integral part of the company that he exited to. And it's not a small company, we're seeing them here first row, it's SAP, and he has stuck to it, although I do believe that this must also be something that is not always easy to see when your own company is, of course, swallowed up by such a giant. The question now is, you have had or have still a very successful software as a service business. How do you keep moving forward in the sector or in the era of agentic AI, right? What are the things that you have to unlearn, that you have to learn again? What are the new assumptions that are underlying your business success for the next years to come? And this he's going to unpack with one of our must-haves on this stage at Startupland, Jörg Binbrücker. Please put your hands together for André Christ and Jörg.
Sit down. So before we start with the agentic topic, I would say let's start with the obvious. Everybody's interested in one of the best and biggest tech exits in the whole history of tech in the Rhineland, but in Germany. So tell us a little bit about what have been the key drivers to this exit over 10 years of LeanIX.
Yeah, I mean, the key drivers obviously have been how can we build something incredibly big, right? So, when we were in this journey, we started as a bootstrapping company with like 2 people for the first 3 years, and then gradually added people thanks to the Capnamic investment many years back. But the question was always, how can we do something where people speak about later and say like, I want to become the LeanIX for Z. X, Y, Z, right? So for us, it was always like we wanted to become the Google Maps for IT and build something really, really big. And over time, it was really the question: how do we make it that it lasts longer? And then when the time came and the offer from SAP came around, we asked ourselves, well, isn't that the chance for us to turn it into something where people later say like, well, I want to become something like the LeanIX in my category. And so for us, it was always about this, how can we solve those problems at real scale? And if I look at today, it's almost like feeling in a candy store. We have like more than 2,000 customers right now. We've crossed the probably like 200 million ARR mark. There's 400 people in R&D only who work like really AI first today, and this in a big corporate. So it's almost like in these days where everything is about building and customers and so on. It's just an incredible time to take this to the next level. So basically for us, it's been a great journey. It's different now as part of the corporate, but making something even bigger as part of this corporate world is something which is great. Yeah. So at the moment. Yeah.
I thought you would say that I was your chairman over the 10 years. That was really helpful. But believe it or not, LeanIX is and has been ever in Bonn. It has been not in Berlin, not in Munich. Tell us, was that a blocker in some way? Was it an advantage? What do you think about the location for the startup?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was in the beginning also, the first couple of years, you know it, because I was like going to Berlin and then looking around and attending like interesting startup meetups and so on to understand what are we actually doing in isolation over in Bonn. Yeah? So there wasn't much of an infrastructure. Startupland was far away from being there. So being able to also meet people and also hire people who have an idea what it means to build a B2B startup is difficult. And I think even today, if you if you think about topics like customer success or product builders or B2B SaaS product builders, there isn't many people you can hire in Germany still, because there haven't been companies who have been doing that for many years. So if I look at the people we've hired in Bonn, most of them, 95% of the people had no clue about our domain, enterprise architecture, no idea, and many of them have never worked in a startup either. So we had to almost think about like both dimensions. How do we make it attractive for them to work in a startup, and how do they learn about this domain of enterprise architecture? And the very good news about us for Bonn was they didn't run away so easily, right? So you didn't have the Zalando next door or the next hype company around the door. So we could have. It was a little bit more like we could take more time to show them how exciting it is. And so one of the things, and Jörg introduced me to an interesting company over the years who's actually creating like custom sneakers. And I wear mine, by the way, today. So it's like LeanIX on my sneakers. So what we started after like people were 5 years with LeanIX, we gave those sneakers to them, and it was like even today when we have like a LeanIX party or so on, everybody wears their sneakers, right? So it's like being with LeanIX for 5 years has been an incredible thing, because you're showing like, you made it in a startup beyond like year 2 or year 3. And so we have people now being with LeanIX 10 years, which is absolutely incredible. And so you can do that in Bonn more reliably, probably, than being in the biggest startup hub where the next big offer is around the corner. So for us, it was a good place. Although I had a lot of FOMO in the first years, honestly, going to Berlin and trying to figure out like what's the hottest things going on. But building there was a little bit better.
Maybe you tell a little bit about the out of home campaign you did, which was really great, and where you explained the people a little bit about what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, for everyone of you who has been in Silicon Valley, if you ever go from the airport to Palo Alto, you pass a lot of billboards, classical billboards, those big like posters and so on, and you see amazing stuff. And I was fortunate to be in Silicon Valley a couple of times early on, and I thought like, why are they putting all those digital companies? They put those big billboards out with amazing and funny and great slogans, and so. André, who's also here, and I, we thought about like, what can we do for hiring people? And then one of our key designers, he came up with some really clever like taglines. He said like, Silicon, or like we said, Poppelsdorf statt Palo Alto, or Klodwig, what did we say, Klodwigplatz statt Menlo Park or something. And so we had a couple of those, and we were putting them here at Südbahnhof, in Cologne, in Bonn. They were just blue with one big tagline, and it was always about like a little bit joking about, yes, you can of course go to Silicon Valley to build a great software company, but of course there's also great stuff happening here in Bonn or in the Rhineland. And people for years remembered this campaign and thought about like when we asked them, how did you come across LeanIX? And they said like, I saw your campaign. I was always like smiling at it. So this was one of the best things we ever did in recruiting. It cost us like a lot of money for the time. I think we spent like 60,000 euros for those billboards, but we saved a lot of money. We would have not given to recruiters at the time.
Perfect. So last question to this. When did you know that SAP was the right way than just going for IPO or keep on doing it and growing? I think we had a really good ARR at the time, but there was no need to sell. So when did you know that SAP was the right partner?
Well, I think for me it was important to honestly learn also firsthand from Christian, our CEO, who said like, or where I asked like, okay, what are we going to do there, and why is this important to SAP's future? And he said like, well, we have understood as SAP that it's not just about our landscape at SAP, it's about understanding the rest of the landscape in companies too. So the reality today is, if you look at companies' software landscapes, 90% of the applications in those landscapes is often non-SAP. It's not a big problem because a lot of that depends on SAP. So the big advantage LeanIX brings this visibility across the entire landscape, so which gives customers an ability to understand how is their entire data flowing in their landscape. And so I think for me, this gave me an impression of, okay, we are part of a more strategic view of helping SAP help their customers get into the cloud, modernize their landscapes. And it's this, and I also experienced this 2.5 years in. It's not about us just looking at the SAP part of a company landscape, but it's very important for us to stay agnostic and do stuff for even if it's other vendors. It's sometimes hard because we probably give an overview about everything, whereas even like our sales teams would love to sell SAP software, but being credible in the market to customers often also means like you have to show the entire landscape. So that in hindsight has given me a good view of like, yes, we are strategic for it, and we're not just like one item on the price list everybody goes out to sell, but we can help SAP a little bit. And that's what motivates me personally, is how can we make sure that SAP is staying there as an important tech company in Europe, and not like getting ripped off this place. Yeah.
Okay, our claim with LeanIX was we are the Google Maps for IT. So usability was really key differentiator for us. Today we have AI agents, we have vibe coding, everybody's doing this stuff on itself. So why do you need still LeanIX?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you a very honest story. Last week I had the opportunity to talk to the CTO of Lego, who informed me that like one of their employees had vibe coded LeanIX over the weekend. So they're terminating our contract. Lego is a long-term customer with us, and so that's been a pretty bummer for us to say like, okay, now someone like of their team just vibe coded LeanIX over the weekend. And so, but the story behind it is, and I think this is going to affect a lot of the software companies or categories right now, is that it's now more easy than ever to go and redo those tools. May it be LeanIX, may it be others, if you do not have enough moat or defensibility. So for us, this means we have to invest even harder right now to understand how do we give customers great visibility, because the data is unique. Yeah? So LeanIX has some very good visualizations for looking at landscapes, but a lot of the stuff, how you interact with that, yeah, you don't probably need anymore. So I work a lot in Claude these days. So I don't need to go into a user interface and look up what those applications are for. So for us, we also believe that a lot how people will work in the future, they will just interact with Claude or ChatGPT, but there's certain visualizations. So if you look at an application landscape with 10,000, 20,000 applications, that's our uniqueness. And this is where we always will have a user interface, which is great. But do we need it for search? Do we need it for a dashboard? Maybe not. Yeah. So, and that's why I think for us it's an important process to think back and understand one more time what is the core which needs to stay in a UI versus what can you do from Claude. And some of the things we've done, for example, is we've been proactive and brought out an MCP server in November last year. So for everyone here like doesn't know what MCP is, I think it's very important to look it up and make sure you think about like your product. How can you make an MCP server useful to provide the data you have in your product and connect it actually with Claude to make it useful? That's one. And the second point is, we were a bit fortunate, and it's been a discussion in the board many years back, how do we price our software? So we price today by the number of applications in LeanIX. So a company, big company like Adidas or others, they have thousands of applications they manage in LeanIX, and we don't count the users. Yeah, so we do not price by the users. So as it turns out now in the age of AI and MCP servers, we're fortunate, yeah, because all of a sudden we don't care if it's like 20 users working with LeanIX directly or like we have today, thousands of users, because a company would not pay us by the number of users. So my big like warning out there is like everybody who's still on price per user, you got to sit down and redo your pricing very quick, yeah, because there's not going to be any pricing in the future anymore, which is user-based. Yeah, so it will all be content-based, value-based, usage-based, transaction-based, whatever. And so we were fortunate we could give out our MCP server and say like, look, we don't care if everybody is now using the MCP server and accessing the data. Yeah, so our user interface isn't that important anymore. So just go ahead. Yeah, so this is why. Turned out that some of those decisions from earlier were quite fortunate. And I mean, just one last thought. I keep hearing this like SaaS is dead story a lot, and we're discussing it obviously internally as well. I find the most important thing I heard, it's also not, I didn't invent it, but think about it this way, 10% of the IT cost in an enterprise is IT cost. So 10% of the total cost a company typically has is related to IT. All the ERP systems, the CRM system, the project management systems, and so on. And of course, like if I'm a CIO or a CTO now, I can go now and optimize the 10%. Yeah? And maybe I squeeze out half of it, then I have reduced the 10% to 5%. But the ability we have now with AI is to go and optimize the 90% of the cost in an organization and make crazy things out of this with AI, which IT hasn't been able to do. Yeah? So I see a lot of, like, if you're following on X or whatever, I see a lot of like news and like, oh, we've vibe coded X, Y, Z over the weekend and done that. Yeah, well, I say like, well, why didn't you create something amazing for your customers over the weekend, so you optimize the 90% in your company and make that better. Yeah, so I think this battle will go on. Yeah, but I fundamentally believe there's going to be systems of records and systems, and the smart CIOs, CTOs will clearly optimize for making the 90% better. So there's a lot of room for companies here to come up with like really innovative solutions in the 90%, honestly. So and I think it will have some pressure on prices, but in general, I think SaaS is dead is probably a little bit overhyped at the moment.
Okay, coming back to MCP service, I think the adoption in the US is way ahead of Europe. Why is that, and what have European customers to do?
Yeah, I mean, what I see is looking at the whole movement there, the like being brave and being open to provide your data and allow customers to build amazing stuff on top of it is probably something more connected with a more risk-affine mindset. Yeah, so you want that your customers build great stuff on top of it, and you need to find ways how to commercialize that too. Yeah, because of course you don't want that people just suck your data out of your system and then they don't pay anymore. So, but what I just see is that the acceleration around providing data out of software and making it simple to use, building agents on top. There's a huge opportunity if companies provide those MCP servers. And I mean, we literally right now have the second iteration of that conversation was like, which companies are providing now stuff in OpenClaw, right? So it's I mean, MCP servers are almost like the discussion of yesterday. Today the discussion is like, who is already providing like a company safe, enterprise safe environment to run agents on OpenClaw. And so I fear a little bit that the speed of discussion we do over here in Europe is like lagging behind. So we need to make sure that we stay close to that. So that's why probably like the MCP discussion is something for us, everybody here, to catch up and see how can you bring out useful MCPs. And but then the next is obviously, well, how can you make in the future, or do you think about how do you make OpenClaw useful for your setup? Even though it might be still a year or two out, yeah, but it's clearly important to look into those opportunities and think through what it means for your businesses. Yeah.
Going back from LeanIX, I mean, the whole agentic AI spectrum, do you see new markets, new categories coming up? What is your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, so I've only touched once on this category, and we're in this category enterprise architecture. I mean, if I would go into this room here and ask like random people, what is enterprise architecture? I would bet like 9 out of 10 times we would say like, I've never heard it. Yeah, so it is a niche category in enterprise software to get people an overview of the software they run in an enterprise. Yeah, and this category probably has like a market size of like, well, maybe 1, 2, 3 billion, but we always knew it's limited. And for us, we were always thinking around how can we go into adjacent markets with LeanIX. So we thought about the SaaS management market, we thought about this market and that market. But what's now clearly emerging is the whole topic of AI governance. So the question, how do companies manage all the AI agents out there, has been a big topic for us. So yes, clearly we've been not only looking at how can we build in AI features in our software. Yeah, an MCP server is great, super, an agentic feature is great in the software, nice, an agent, all good, but we've been also looking at how can we take what we have as capabilities, helping companies manage application landscapes, and now apply it for the age of agents. And so we've come up with a concept we called the AI Agent Hub. So it's almost like the place where a company manages all their agents. Yeah? So wherever you go, and this is then kind of in our Agent Hub. And we've been actually giving it almost like for free to our customers in November. So we have hundreds, like almost like more than 100 customers who've now discovered more than 60,000 agents with the AI Agent Hub, which allows them to keep an overview. Because the next challenge we're all having is everybody can build an agent today, tomorrow, but do you as a company trust with your agents? Yeah? And the concept we're introducing is almost like, from Instagram. Yeah? You get like the blue star for your agent, it's verified. Yeah? And so in a company, you will then be able to track all your verified agents so that you have an understanding of what's trusted and what's not. So the encouragement is probably think about your strength, what you can do today in your home category, and what does it mean for the challenges of AI. And besides just beefing up your software with AI a little bit, to make text editing or whatever nicer, or to make a little bit agentic feature, also think about what are adjacent category you can go in next and try out. Yeah? No one knows if we're ever going to be successful in this adjacent category, of course, but I think this is a time where there's a lot of movement in the market. Companies are willing to try out, and so I think it's a good time to explore what's possible. And I'm excited to see that this actually being leveled up all the way to it's no longer the LeanIX Agent Hub, it's actually the SAP AI Agent Hub based on our technology, which is great. Yeah, so it's like the LeanIX product is there for enterprise architecture, but then there's for managing agents in companies, it's all of a sudden like the kind of like AI Agent Hub for SAP. And again, the great thing about this is we're thinking about this it's not just for SAP agents, it's for any kind of agent whoever builds this. Yeah, so it's great to see even within corporate world, you can still be super innovative, come up with new ideas, new categories, and this is what we're now going into.
Cool. So you already touched, the panic that SaaS is dead, right? So AI is eating software. So what is your recommendation to all these founders here regarding this, and what is still a place, to strive and to scale?
Yeah, I mean the one recommendation is probably if you haven't done it and you are not working with Claude and haven't tried it out, you have to do it. So that's probably the single most important takeaway. If you haven't created the skill in Claude, go do it and try it out. So it's really like you see a lot of discussions right now about like how things work, how it happens, and whatever. But unless you do it yourself, you're, I think, not able to grasp what it means for your daily workflows for your product at all. So, and for me, it's always been an important thing, like trying to lead by example. So, I'm using Lovable, I'm using Claude, I'm trying to weave it in any kind of area, and I'm incredibly proud of my team. If I look at what we're doing. We brought everybody together in November and brought 400 people to Bonn, like our global P&E team, for a 2-day hackathon, which our team organized. And so this has been an incredible event because everybody during those 2 days has either worked with Claude, with Figma, or with Figma Make, or with Lovable. Yeah, and we've taken 10 business challenges, real things, not like create the next pizza store or create the next whatever, but real things which bother us since months and months. So we put out those 10 challenges, and then those teams have coded them. So after those 2 days, like 400 people have spent 16 or like maybe let's say 8 or 10 hours working with these tools hands-on. And this makes such a big difference, not just talking about AI and agentic AI and so on, but really trying to solve things and feeling the excitement. Since then, the adoption in my team has gone through the roof. We have a skills marketplace for our R&D team where daily people publish new skills for Claude. To give you some examples, today we had our OKR workshop. We're not doing OKRs without Claude anymore. Yeah, we're just transcribing the meeting. At the end of the meeting, Claude, we're using the OKR skill, and Claude comes up with a rating if the OKRs we've provided, if they were good or not. And then we get recommendations for that. Yeah. The other week, we had a strategy workshop where we've created a new, like, what are our 7 beliefs? Where we just took photos of the flip charts, we added this all, and by the end of our 1.5-day workshop, yeah, we said, Claude, okay, now do an update to our product strategy and come up with a document we can communicate to all the employees. Done. Yeah, so it's like everything you do is like you need to weave it in. So it's not just for coding. I think it's for every other workflow. And so what I observe right now is that product managers, UX, product marketing, they are really excited about it. It's not a thing for engineers only. And while they obviously use it to build greater like software, the other areas can even benefit more, and they probably have to change more. So I'm incredibly proud of what the team is doing there. And since like a couple of weeks, we are also able to use Claude Code now for like productive code within SAP. So and it's almost like for us, it's an incredible situation because we can help also the rest of SAP see how we're doing it, sharing our insights, and making everybody use that. So it's actually a good place to be in there. So and therefore, I think it's if you can take time to try this out yourself, it really makes a difference if you actually know what you're speaking about.
Yeah, I can 100% second that. So this is something we look in now. If you look into a startup, what are they doing with Claude? What is the automation great in the startup? Not just in the tech department, in all departments. But this is very decisive, I would say. I think we're running out of time. I would love to have 10 more questions, but I will give the audience a chance to, shout out. And maybe if you have a questions to André or to me, I don't know. I can give you my shoe size or whatever. Just raise the hand. You have a question? No, you just have the mic. Over there.
Thanks for your talk, first of all. With regards to using Claude or any LLM-based machine to iterate on strategies, tactics, whatever in your company, aren't you concerned how these LLMs work and if they maybe spit out mediocre ideas that are collected in the web, in the internet, where you cannot really trace back maybe where the idea comes from, and if the content that the LLM generates, if that is really proven by experts or whatever. Do you have a system to double check that, to verify that, or do you trust most of what comes up in these machines?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that it's about idea generation. It's more about speeding up the process, turning the ideas which we have into the relevant like content and into the relevant artifacts and challenging it. So I think what we're not saying like, give me like the 5 ideas, what can I do now in LeanIX, right? So what can I do better? But what we do is we take the customer feedback we have. So the ability to synthesize what we know about the product. I mean, look at 2,000 customers we have. Yeah? So daily, there's an incredible amount of customer feedback we're getting. And so for the first time, now you have an ability to take together that data and to come up with a very concise and aggregated form of that. And so for me, it's not about like, how do I take information out of that model, but how do I like take my information and my context I bring to the model and leverage it to make it better. So I think in many of those areas, it's more about that than sparking ideas. Of course, it also helps you as a challenging partner and say like, look, if I take a certain piece of the product itself, give me ideas how others would solve it, yeah. So and so on. So you can use it as a discussion partner. But I think we have an incredible team at LeanIX or at SAP in general. But but having such a sparring partner to take out all the laborious work of doing that and speeding that up, and I think that makes the difference. Not so much like taking information out of an LLM and using that.
Yep.
And we're doing some, of course, with like all of it, we've invested, and that's the benefit of a corporate, right? So we are investing a lot in how do we make sure that that we're good with IP and with all of that. So there's stuff in place to take care of how do you use the data.
Yeah. So your proprietary data is like still the foundation, very important, and you can use AI to synthesize to that makes sense.
Yeah.
For your company.
Yeah, but I mean, just as a final word, there's a lot of fear of this. Like, well, what if I give code to a large language model? What do I if I give the code of my software in there? And I think today, like, well, if I would want to copy anything, I would on purpose not give it the code. Yeah, I would go to the documentation. I would go to the user, like the publicly available website, because I think today, what is becoming more important is the how you build stuff, like what you want to build, and what the customers are doing with it, and so on. The code, as we all know, is becoming so irrelevant. So my best developers or product builders, as I would start to say now, my best product builders, they haven't touched code in a long while now. Yeah, so they don't write code anymore. What they do incredibly well in their domain, they know what are the issues in our product, and they are able to translate that into like prompting and working with it. But like putting code in an LLM, yeah, there's still the fear of then you lose IP. But I mean, you lose IP faster pointing like a large language model to your user documentation, which is public. Yeah, so it's so much easier to rebuild your product. Yeah.
Very good. We have to close it. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you, André. It was a pleasure.